Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Side Radio. It's your boy DJ Kool-Aid here, uh, bringing you another live interview with your boy Dan, the Watchman. Dan, how's it going, buddy?
Yeah, not too bad. Cheers yourself.
Not too
All
bad,
good.
not too bad. Where are you chiming in from, Dan?
I'm in Harwich in the UK, in Essex. It's really bright and sunny sometimes.
That sounds
Hasn't been
good. That sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. Is that where you're from?
yeah, yeah,
Born and
yeah. It's
raised?
quite quiet since since all this cold everything went down. It's been ever so quiet down this end. It's sort of really dead. Life hasn't been the same since really. It's
Right
like
on.
George Orwell's handbrake turned through the front door in a Cortina.
Right on, right on. Now, so a lot of people want to know about the journey. So why don't
Yeah,
you go ahead and tell your fans, tell us how the journey has been
yeah.
up to this point.
Well, to be honest, it started off with me learning, really. I mean, I was learning vast amounts, really. I've done about 20 years of intense research, sort of studying history. So I decided there was so many lies in history, I wanted to sort of make them all straight and try and show everybody what's happened in history and why we got in such a mess and why we're not helping by carrying on following the same patterns, really. Because the only thing you really learn from history when you look through it is that we've learned nothing from it, and there's so much hidden in it, so many things that you wouldn't even think about really because they're right in front of your face, but they kind of flaunt them in front of your face too. And it's like there's a higher power that seems to have an overlook over everybody. And so I seem to be really under pressure lately because they've taken vandalism down, which was one of my main platforms, and they've taken that down. And so there were a lot of more singers that were better and been doing it a lot longer than I had. And as much as like I started singing about Trump and the KKK, and I know he doesn't want it coming out, but there were still other people a lot better than me on that website that had been spent years in their music, and I just think it's disgraceful that they can just take a website down and everybody's music was gone. That's just not fair. This is why no one ever gets anywhere when we're trying to do it privately on our own rather than make money out of it. We're just trying to do it for the good of people, really, and try and make life better in general. Because when you have knowledge and it can make everybody's life better, I don't think it's good to keep it in your head when it can make everybody's everyday life so much better. And I think it's very silly that we don't share the information that's true so we can try and get above this. And because we all know it's a power struggle, and we know there's a few rich guys in the tower somewhere who think they can tell everybody how it's going to be and program us into a way of thinking, and it can't go on. It's sort of
Absolutely.
I noticed in the financial thing in 2008 when the cash crisis happened, they kind of bought the Lloyd's TSP on the QT. No one really remembered, and it seems like I think they're the black horse of the apocalypse. It looks like Lloyd's TSP might be involved in Ofsted, I think, and I'm looking into studying into it at the moment, and that's only what I'm finding so far on on the outskirts. It looks like banks are involved in the schools, and if so, it's time we've got to step in, sort of, because we can't carry on. We're just miseducating children, and it's a blinkered system. It's Marxist system, and so the more you look at education, you realise it's one choice. It's my way or the highway sort of thing, and you realise, hang on, we're being blinkered into a way of thinking, and people like me who got put in the corridor to copy out textbooks because we wouldn't listen. Because I knew they were lying to me in history, but I didn't understand about reincarnation and how we've been sort of reincarnated time and time again, and we've been other people at other lifetimes, and we're probably all in the Bible, to be honest. Because I've realised that the truth is so unbelievable, I don't think anyone would ever think of it. Like the
Right.
fact we come from monkeys is the best one, because you think about it, in a flood, when the trees are 200 feet under the water, where were the monkeys going? They're scared of water, and they
Yeah,
didn't have a fucking build a boat. So
absolutely.
that kind of falls at the first hurdle, doesn't it? And then Starbucks put the mermaid on the cup, and it's kind of in your face, isn't it? The born again virgin, and there's your myth. Because God
Yeah,
was hardly normal, so his kids were probably half not normal either. I think
right.
people's minds have been too blinkered into a way of thinking because things were a lot more imaginative in older days, and our minds have maybe been impoundified by our education to make us think a certain way rather than what's real. And I think it's more about what they want us to believe they teach us rather than sort of what we're meant to know. Because I don't think God would teach us any of the stuff that he teaches us in class, and he certainly wouldn't have taken religion out of schools because every child needs that higher power to look at and to just so you've got someone spiritually to answer to afterwards that's above yourself and humanity. So you have someone to want. Because once you take that away, a child doesn't love, and a child's got no one to aspire to please. So once you take that away, they're going to misbehave, and this is what we're seeing in the world now: negativity. Because when a child doesn't know what love is, because we don't teach it, so unless you see it at home, you don't know what it is. So it's just one of those things, isn't it? And the world without love is hell. And I don't think people get that yet. And it's getting quite real for people who are spiritually sort of in tune. And I think this is where it's getting quite uncomfortable now. And I think a lot of the deaths in this coronavirus are probably more suicide than they are anything else. And I think it's just probably been covered up because people who are 40 years old have got no purpose in life anymore. It's kind of like the substance has gone overnight. And that's just a
Absolutely.
shame. That's a shame that people have gone to. This wouldn't have happened in the 80s, in the miners' strikes and all the days when men stood up for them. That wouldn't have happened. But it just seems like we've lapsed so much. I think the government have beaten us down so much. We think little of ourselves. And most people don't even seem to care about themselves. And I'm worried that people haven't thought about their children in all this because it's all very well just carrying on as if it's normal. But this is our children's future. And if I want to die after 3 years in my house on my own, how's my daughter going to feel in 60 years of this? And it's horrible to think of it. And I can't believe no parents even thought of that yet. It's still going shopping. That's just unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah, man. Time flies. What do you want? What do you want your fans to know about you that they don't know about you?
Well, just the thing is, I've had a very real life journey. When I was a child, I was about two, and I used to have nightmares when I was a child. And I always had this nightmare about waking up in a box. And I had a child in my arms I used to rock to sleep every night. And I used to write songs down for it. And I used to do this religiously every night. And I thought, God, I didn't really think of it much when I was younger. As I got older, because I had this nightmare for 15 years, and I used to wake up headbanging out of a box that I was never in. And anyway, years later went by and I found about reincarnation. I looked up the meaning of my name because God names you what he thinks of you. So when you look it up in Hebrew, you actually see what God thinks of you within your name. So it's kind of like a hidden meaning for you that he thinks of you. And when I looked up my name, I started realising a lot about my past. And I've got a girl's name. And if you look up my name, Danny, Dane, it's actually a girl's name, whereas and the mother of heaven's name was Danae, which is actually a man's way of spelling Danny. And I realised she died. I found her story in the Bible, in the Onkelos, written by Aquila, in the Onkelos, saying that I died in a box and my child was in my arms, and it explained my nightmare when I read it, how I
Hmm.
how I woke up as a child. And this
Wow.
is how I realised about the reincarnation. Then I found the Zohar, which means to separate and to violently separate. And I thought, oh my God, we've been separated from ourselves somehow. And then this is where I realised spirit beings are androgynous, both sexes. So to come into the flesh, we have to be separated from ourselves, our soul. So we've got a soul partner, and this is why we get married. It's not to get someone over a border or because you like someone. It was meant to be to connect yourself to your soul partner. It's kind of like a game in a way, but it's kind of
Hmm.
ended up corrupted.
Right,
I
right,
think
right.
man got hold of it. Man taints everything with money. Woman brings life. Man destroys it. We all know this, but no one really says anything. And it's not until you get back to the start of history and you think, well, hang on a minute, God was good, but where was his womb? And then you
Right.
think, hang on, when you've got an IQ, you think, hang on, well, where's mother then? And this is when I
Right.
realised, my God, it's because she gives you armour. So they've hidden her. And they pray to Lucifer in the Freemasons, which is actually the mother in heaven. But they
Hmm.
disguise Lucifer. So they're kind of keeping her to themselves and hiding them from everybody else. And that's not fair because there won't be a rich man in heaven. So I don't know who they're kidding. that's, uh,
Absolutely.
that's the way Ella gets the last laugh, I suppose.
Yeah.
And all the corruption with the name Allah as well, because it's like arm, leg, arm, head, isn't it? It's a God body. So,
Right.
like, God's name was Arafat, and that was 883 his number, contrary to thought. Everyone thinks it's 888, but it's actually 883. And that is the same number as a Vatar. Allah, your God body, basically, kind of like your altered carbon bodysuit. Mum made us flesh bodysuits, serpent flesh. That's the bit everyone misses out in the Bible, isn't it? They don't really go over that very thoroughly at school. And it kind of, when Adam gets separated from Eve with the ring,
Well,
it's
that's
kind of
good.
still separation there, isn't it? It's right in front of your face, but you don't really see it for what it is because it's not emphasized.
Right.
And the more spiritual you become, the more you kind of realize and tune into symbolism. There's a lot of things really that are hidden within spirituality that we're used to teach in school, but they've slowly been taken out. Symbols being one of them in spirituality. That was taught straight away at schools when we were kids, but now we don't sort of teach spirituality. We don't teach about God. And I mean, I often open my kids to the things in the sky. I mean, just lately, the sky's been quite biblical, but no one really looks up anymore. They're all looking at their hand. Like, I think it's what God means by the last of the uprights. The last people that ain't looking at phones with a G on it, because you're kind of praying to a Freemasonical symbol, basically, aren't you? You're doing what the Freemasons do, praying to the grand architect in a way. And I don't, people don't look at life like me. I think, as I say it spiritually, I see that you're kind of worshipping the image of the beast. Same as you are with Facebook, really, because it's an F, it's six. And it's the mark of the beast. And FOO is 666. And sort
Well,
of Fox
you want
Media,
your fans to know a lot.
it's right in your face, but it's not if you're not wise, I suppose. Because I like to educate myself, but it's seen now as crazy, I think. Like Hermes said, everybody will be seen as crazy who's wise, and the crazy people will be held up as wise. And I think Boris was kind of the flag. Him and
Absolutely.
Trump, they were the trumpets. And I think spiritually as well with the aeroplanes and everything, and I've been watching them and the birds go around them, and I think obviously they're doing making weather or something with the planes, and no one really looks up at them, and I just think, God, it's the first place you should be looking because that's where any danger is going to come from. But people don't see real danger when it's there, and that's bad, isn't it? It's scary, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like you want your fans to know a lot about you.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you definitely have a lot to say.
Yeah, well, it's just think I've learned so much. I think it's overloaded my head in a way, and it does make you seem crazy. But when you understand what I'm saying, you start to make another level of sense, and you realise we've been played like idiots. And at the moment, we're in Groundhog Day scenario, which is basically a film based on insanity, and
Right.
we're now all trying to normalise it and say it's fine. And we live in insanity. So they must be in their ivory tower on their backs, laughing their heads off. And I think, oh my God, are we actually going to lower our standards to this? And it's
So,
just like no one wants to stand up.
with that being said, with what you just said, what are some of your biggest likes and dislikes about the industry?
With the hospital's the main one. I walk in the hospital, it's like I'm walking, it's a comedy show to me because any man who's educated, who's got a high IQ, knows that doctors know illness starts in the mind. So basically, they've got every single virus plastered on the wall to cement it in your mind while they try and delay you to keep you in a car park. And it's basically a big delay tactic to try and make money out of the car parking system, if you ask me. And it seems like they're all changing masks but not doing anything. And I thought, well, it seems like a business because the government wouldn't let you sit and do nothing and play on the phone the whole time while you're waiting. And it's just not the sort of thing the government would have done in public. And you think doctors should have said something by now to the hospitals. You know the doctors are corrupt as well because they've not said anything. Or they're miseducated so badly and they don't know illness starts in the mind. But I'll be surprised because I reckon they all know that. Because then most of them do tell you when they're honest, when there's no one, no higher power watching. And I think this is a lot what it is. It's the corporational powers that be that are kind of binding our words. Look at Charlie Chaplin. I mean, he was one the statement he made in my track 64, I think it is, The Master. the statement he made is pretty much sort of telling you what's happening today. It's like the rich man who's got too greedy and he's got too powerful. And we were told, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. He was telling you, they're fighting to enslave you. We got released in Jubilee. Jubilee means slavery. So basically, we were released from Jubilee, our 70 years slavery. We were Israel. Scotland was Israel because Jacob was the king of Scotland. And he was known as Israel, not a country. So Israel isn't even real. In retrospect, it was more a people than a place. So, and that was Scotland. And I can't understand why no one's worried about their children over here because we're going to be right at the centre of everything when it goes wrong because it's all going to end up here at the doorstep. And this is why I don't understand why in this country we're not panicking a bit more.
Yeah.
But I think it's all based on your country because they want the guns. And once they've got the guns, then they'll start on everybody else because this is what it really seems to boil down to with the Sandy Hook false flag events. Sort
Yeah.
of, well, allegedly false flag events.
Yeah. Yeah. The guns are a major problem in this country now at this time. What are your limits? Do you have any limitations?
No, not really. I mean, sort of only where I'm stopped. Don't seem to be able to go anywhere just lately. Since this cold happened, it seems like the way I can't talk online so much. Everything seems censored. They seem to be holding things back all the time. Vandalism went down. I seem to have been under constant attack really since I wrote the KKK song. Funnily enough, the Margot song, and I think that's the one really that done it. Trump doesn't like it, obviously for obvious reasons, but it needs to come out because America needs to know as well. I mean, it's been well hidden, really. I think it must be more known about in America because it seems one of those things. But we're told over here China are controlled beyond belief. They're cambered and watched. And I spoke to someone in China and he said, no, we're not like that at all. So it's our media trying to condition us to accept it. When you start to look at things with a different view on things, when you look at it like a psychopath, like they are, because I'm a Spurgeon, so I have the ability to multi-platform think like anybody really. I know what people want to hear, and I know what they're going to say. I know what they need to hear and sort of want to hear, and I generally know when someone's got a. If someone wants to talk about something, it just seems sometimes people are sent to me. Maybe it's because who I was in my first life is kind of why people automatically home to me. It's I'm not anybody now, so to speak. I don't think I'm brilliant or anything, but obviously I was in the past. In once upon a time in one life, I was better than this. But I
So,
think that's part of the course of life. Something when you start at the top, you got to hit the bottom. That's life. I think it's part of the learning process of life, and
right.
you learn to lose, learn to lose things, people, love, because we do lose a lot of we have a lot of pain in this world, and I think life is more to deal with pain and learn to deal with pain than it is anything else in trauma, because you sort of realise a lot of these ADHD diseases are all probably past life trauma. And so the more you chat with doctors about it, and I've brought it up with doctors, and because they know I'm quite intelligent, they listen, and they're realising that it might be something to do with past life trauma, like mental health. Because this is what I'm saying. I think a lot of mental health people are more spiritually awake. And because they don't want everybody switched on spiritually, they call it madness and try and get rid of us with tablets. I was a bit clever and I said I knew you were trying to kill me with tablets. And the pharmacy said, oh, with that, you're perfectly sound in mental health, Mr. Stamp. You don't need medication. And I thought, what are you telling me? Because I said she was trying to kill me. And my mum nearly fell off her chair. I thought I was going to have to book her in. But
So, so what inspired you to do what you're doing then?
I think that was it because I thought, hang on, there's so many people in the mental health who think they're stupid. And like people like me who was really bright at school, I was making computers at 6. Yeah, I was called remedial. And I looked up the meaning of remedial. It actually means cure or remedy. Yeah, for all the lies you've been taught. And I realised, God, they made me believe I was remedial to such a level that I believed it myself. And this is when I realised if someone doesn't stand up and say something who's realised, then nobody's ever going to know. And this is going to keep going on and on and on. And it's only ever going to get worse because it will get more repressed. And I thought, I'm going to do something because, like, someone needs to do something. I don't really care what they're going to do to me at the end of the day. Can't make it a lot worse. So even death is just the beginning. So there's not a lot they can throw at me to me. I just, it doesn't worry me so much. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do something. I've got kids, I've got grandkids. I care. I want to try and other people's kids as well. Because kids have a choice. It doesn't matter what the parents want to tell them about God. Kids have their own choice. Because my parents never told me about God. And I went mad at my mum. No parent has a choice to decide. It's your job to tell me about religion. It's my choice to decide whether it's important. You don't have the right to make that choice. And that's the way I see it. All kids should be taught at school about religion. If they want to follow it, they can. Because I don't see religion as more a belief system, more a way of living and a way to be. It's not living that's important; it's living right, and that's what I see. I think in my music, I try to promote to children. Yeah, you have to live a bit bent sometimes to manipulate the system. That's not because you want to. Sometimes you have to do the less of the evils to try and get somewhere in this world, because that's the way the world is. As long as you do it with a morally clear conscience, knowing that no one's been messed over for what you've done. Because I say when you're fucking over your fellow man, you're kind of fucking yourself really. Because we're only doing the people the same as us. That's just making other people suffer and bringing more suffer. And no one
Yeah.
ever benefits, do they? And
Yeah.
that's just
So you
that's just
just
my
mentioned what the message, because the message is always in the music. So that is the message you are trying to drive home. What are your short term and long term goals with your music?
really just to keep my knowledge alive. Because all the knowledge I've learned, I thought what I'm going to do is I'm going to tackle each subject one at a time. God said they need teaching like babies, they need breastfeeding. So I thought, right, all the knowledge I've got, I'm going to get it all. I'm going to just make one song at a time about one subject, bang them out the park, get them all sorted, put the proof online on my websites, and that way I've put it all out there. People know about it. Just try and raise awareness and try and keep the knowledge I've learned alive because I see it as a waste. I don't think one man should have all the knowledge in the world in his head. And when everybody can benefit, why? It's just to seem such a stupid because you're scared people are going to call you crazy. Well, I don't care. You can't really label me anything else. They've labelled me everything and none of them fit.
Right.
They went Spurgis, which was Jesus' name. Jesus' name was Lucius Tiberius Aspergus, but I've got God disease. That's a disability, isn't it? I think I'd rather think of God than education, because you see that people hold education as a belief system like the Bible, because you forget your senses in every case. It's gravity. You jump in the sea, you don't sink. Well, there goes gravity. You don't feel like you're on a roundabout and want to get off, do you? Well, we're probably not spinning then. Do you know? Just trust your senses and not education. But people trust that the older they get, they seem to hang on to that education as a belief system more than they do the Bible. And I think this is the issue, idolising something of man rather than God's word. Because that is the worst what my name means, funny enough, God's word, God's blessing, God's gift.
Right. Right. So Dan, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Sorry.
Where,
I
where,
don't To be honest, I don't really want to be famous. I don't. I've always had a lot of people around me. I seem to attract a lot of people anyway because I do sort of tend to teach people. People like listening to me for some reason. And I thought this is why I started with the music because I thought well, if the youngsters are listening to the music, it's got to be a good thing because they even egged me on the way down. Oh, you're doing really well. I like the music, and it's good to see youngsters light up because they're so down at the moment. Even the youngsters, they're so depressed and they don't want to say anything to their parents, but they wonder why they ain't doing nothing as well. They're all thinking the same thing I am. It's just I'm the only one who'll say anything for some reason. It's just like I have to hide behind the crazy to say it because no one else wants to face it. When I've
right,
said it, it seems like the air's clear.
right, right,
But
right.
first, walking around a
So,
big elephant at the moment.
right. So you don't want, you're not really doing this to become famous. Who
No,
if
it's more about the message out. I'm doing it for people because I think
Yeah,
everybody
for
has
the
a
message.
right.
Right.
Even
Which
the
is
poor
fine.
man has the right to know about God. He has the right to know there's a mother in heaven. He has the right to know there's a mum to talk to, and because we all know the dad's not coming. Do you know what I mean? He wrote it, and he's good, and he's loving, and he's caring, and all that. But we all know mum's the one who holds it together because mum's the one who keeps us real. She's
Now,
the survivor. And she,
speaking of mom, I've noticed in all your songs, you
yeah,
always give a shout out to mama. You always say thank you, mama.
yeah,
What's that
bless my
about?
mum. That's just basically blessing mum, God in heaven for my life, just saying thank you for my, because she gave her life gave her life for us to have life. So the least
Amen.
you can do is a higher power is, yeah, God bless her. You have to say,
Amen.
oh, bless her every time and just say, like, thanks for my life. Might be a bit crap at the moment, but it's still real and I've still got people I care for. So it's still worth living, isn't it? While I've
Amen.
still got hope, still hope.
All right. Well, we don't have much time left, but I do
And
want to
indeed,
ask you this.
of people as well, so I like protection. I like to know that someone above me is protecting me.
Right, of
I
course. Of course. We all got that angel sitting on our shoulder. Uh,
do put some people out there, don't I, with Trump and Biden, and I'll tell it like it is.
so I know you mentioned that you're not doing this to be famous, but if given the opportunity,
Oh yeah,
who in the industry would you like to work with and why?
there's loads of people really. Well, Jurassic 5 have been number one boys. I'd love to love to sing with because I just think they're awesome. They've put into hip hop the whole world. They've put so much of their life into it, and no one understands what those guys have been through. They've been to hell and back. They've had assets frozen. They've been shot at. They've been targeted. And anyone who's educated in America knows what Tupac was about anyway, because they've got it in the higher education in America. It's just for some reason us English hate ourselves. We don't tell us anything for some reason. And it's just like the English just kept in the dark about everything. And this is why I started doing it as well, because I believe everybody should know about Pac. You hear so many people say they love him. Who went looking for him then? He told you the Illuminati were going to kill him, put his body to sleep. Niggas at the party as rowdy as him. Where were you looking then? Too busy screaming at him, he didn't hear what he said. It's idolisation, isn't it? This is why it's wrong to idolise. You miss the
Right,
main thing and the
right, right.
potency. And this is why I didn't want to be famous because people don't seem to listen as much when you're famous. And it's sad
One
to
could
see.
argue, one could argue that they do. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't be famous.
So,
But if what type of genre or style of music would you want to work with that you haven't done or collaborated with yet?
I've done it. You know, to be honest, I'd love to do rock. I've always wanted to do rock music because I've got a good rock voice, but because rap was the sort of thing that relates to children more, because the youngsters, I believe, are the ones that try and instill the knowledge in. I chose rap because of, and not only that, hip hop's gone a bit stale, hasn't it? Since Pac and the boys all went, it's kind of all gone downhill, and it seems to have been a push to put all these gay type people in. Not being funny on everyone to their own, but it's not for me. Like it's Rusty door at the wrong place, if you ask me. I think it's not so much being gay is wrong. What it is being gay is a doorway to paedophilia. And I think this is why it's wrong to be gay. It's not the fact of being gay, because, well, it is, it's dirty and it causes disease and nothing, but it's not even clean with the woman. So I can't say it's just brilliant either way, but do you know what I mean? It's just more, it's more the thing that leads to paedophilia, because
I
once
get
man's beastly, he goes beastly.
it. Mhm, I get it. So, what are some of the obstacles or challenges that you've had to deal with in the industry?
Well, really, to be honest, I've had chances of being famous all my life. When I was younger, I mean, I had football trials for Ipswich, West Ham, and I looked like I was going quite well. And there was always something that stopped me. I played badminton for Essex, and I had loads of chances of getting there to fame. It never really seemed to get there. There was always something holding me back. School was the same. That was always targeted. It felt so targeted, and I never really understood it until I realised who I was. And like Jupiter was the one when that came out. It was just like Mr. Sannyford in his house talking to himself, shouting, "Get out of my head." And it sounds like me during the daytime. And I thought, God, they're actually watching me, I'm sure. Or the Truman Show. It's just like Sirius would have been Mum's star. So obviously they're kind of like, that's a kind of mockery of my life, like born into captivity, Sirius falling at his feet. That was my Mum's star. Like, I was just thinking, God damn it. It's like they've been mocking it for years, but I didn't realise. And just lately, it's got quite personal when I found the Zohar and I've kind of linked the past lives. You turn your second brain on, you can remember loads of things from your past, and it's quite a ride, really, because
Right
you
on.
don't believe it first. It's like God said, you stand back when you find it and you're amazed, and then you start to look and you're just dumbfounded, like wow, and it is exactly that.
Right
The
on.
Zohar,
Right on.
recommend it to every man over 40. It's well worth reading. I've put my website online for it, so it's well worth a look. It's called the Zohar. It is. It's got
We'll
the
have to
Kabbalah
check that
in
out.
it. But no, it's a brilliant website. I put all the proof online so everyone can have a look. So I think everyone deserves a chance at it, and it's worth a look.
All
Because I
right.
think a lot of people will find truths in there that rattle home with their soul. I mean, your soul connects with it if you're one of those people because you just see it and you feel it, and you've always felt it. You just don't realise it. Like God said, everyone will think they're no one and nothing, and my people. And that's kind of what I feel like sometimes. If I could die and no one would notice. And it does feel like that, even having as many people listening that do. It feels lonely in this world at the moment. No love left, and we need to share the love.
Yes. Amen to
28,
that.
528 hertz is the love vibration. So I'm going to start recording all my music now at 528 hertz and try and raise the
Love,
love
love
vibration.
that.
And love songs. Well, I'd love to do a love song. I hate singing about sad stuff all the time. I want to do a love song.
All right. Sounds good. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, you've answered all of my questions without me having to ask most of them. So, uh,
Yeah, it's the Holy Spirit, I think, that just sets me up, sets me
yeah,
alight.
hey, I'm a fan. It's all good. I love it.
Yeah,
Um, this was fun. We definitely have to do it again. We will bring you back
definitely.
in and schedule another interview with you later on. Thank you
Yeah,
very much for your time, Dan. Dan
thank
the
you.
Watchman. You can catch all of Dan the Watchman's information on your social media platforms. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Dan the Watchman Stanford on Facebook, and I've got my Zohar, all my website links are on my Facebook page. So, yeah, it's well worth a look. The Zohar I'd recommend to every man over 40 because it is amazing. You wake you up to a lot.
And of course, you can hear Dan the Watchman on Side Radio right here on Hip Hop Fiesta Fridays.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
when
share
Dan
all my
will be
Spotify
streaming live
links on
on
your
Side
page as
Radio.
well. Excellent.
All right, Dan. Thank you very much for your time.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much. Cheers. Take care. See you soon. Word.